Thanks for sitting in. And I don't know, is it ready? I mean, I've still got like 30 seconds left. Should I just pause? Should I?
Well, we're all seated, eating lunch and ready. So you want me to do an intro? You could probably do your intro better. Uh-oh. No.
No, that's pretend. So.
Oh, Christian. You got me.
I was trying not to breathe so I wouldn't move at all. So, yeah.
You had me.
Well, so I could do a quick intro, but
Okay.
the things, hey, I wish I could be there. I was sharing. I don't know if there's anybody there that attended the SharePoint Saturday Virginia Beach, the 5-year anniversary. It
Robin,
was
were you there? Yep.
my favorite shirt that I ever made was the one that has John Cusack from Say Anything, where he's holding the giant number 5 above his head with his car behind him instead of the boombox, out in that iconic scene from that movie. I love that t-shirt, and I gave all of them away thinking I still had one for myself, and I didn't. And so I've actually reached out to the guy that created the t-shirts, asked, could you pull up that design again? It's like, I no longer have it, but I'll recreate it for a fee. But anyway, well, so my name is Christian Buckley. So I've been in the SharePoint space since 2005. Of course, folks that don't know me, I was at Microsoft for several years. I've been an MVP since 2012. I'm now a Microsoft regional director as well. So I'm very involved in the community out west. I helped start a lot of the SharePoint Saturdays out west. But my company, Collab Talk, we're an independent research and technical marketing services company. And I do actual research. In fact, there's 2 massive projects where we're just about to go live later this month that are both Office 365 in scope. And so we have Microsoft and Spanning, Rencore, RecordPoint, tyGraph, and a number of other sponsors of that research. So, some of what I'm going to be talking about today comes from pieces of some of those projects. Of course, it's 30 minutes. I'm going to blow through a lot of stuff. I'll make the slides available. But if you've got questions, I'm going to stick around after we're done with the presentation portion if anybody wants to talk and ask questions. So let me share my screen now. And excellent. So this is so I've done a variation of parts of this in different presentations. I did a session in Copenhagen in November for the European SharePoint Conference. And so I'm kind of expanding on this one piece because it's interesting. I had most discussion the rest of the day after my session in Copenhagen on this specific topic, and recorded a couple interviews and videos and things, which will be going live later this month as well. But on personality and culture and how that impacts collaboration success. And so I'm going to start things out and talk about what we all know. This is the no duh statement. Communication can be really complex. And if you don't think it's complex, then you obviously have not had teenagers. The other problem is that getting people to change, when you found something that's broken, when you found something that is ineffective, getting people to change and getting people to change is easy. Getting it to stick is hard. And I think that's what a lot of people have found. You go and deploy a new platform, no matter what it is. We saw this in the life of SharePoint, but it's true with any application. Any work process is that initially you've got that high adoption, everybody loves it, and then a week later, dramatic drop off, and people go back to the way that they used to do things. And that's just that problem with change. So what are the secrets to change? Is it about, hey, we found magically the right tool? Is it that we trained everybody and we went through and we did our checklist of, okay, everybody's been informed about this? Do we say a lot of prayers, to get people to be consistent in their usage of these things? No. What you have to do is you have to affect behavior. You have to get people to change their daily habits, and that can be incredibly hard. And something that is, so I'll go back to early in my career. This is over 25 years ago. I worked for a company, some of you may remember EDS. So that was Ross Perot's old company. EDS was a couple new experiences for me. It was my first day on the job. I show up, and I knew that they wore jackets and ties, and so I showed up wearing a sports coat, slacks, dress slacks, and a tie. And my manager saw me and came right to me, and she says, "Well, I'm not going to send you home today because it's your first day." And I kind of chuckle, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. She's like, "We wear suits." And so we wear sports coats on casual day. And so that was a big change for me. Now, of course, getting the paycheck, it was really easy for me to conform to that standard when it was whether I could keep my job or not. But that experience at EDS, the team that I was on, we went and we did this exercise. And maybe some of you have done it where we did brain mapping. And I know that there's variations on that. I'm going to cover another one here in a minute. But we did this brain mapping where it was this personality test. And I thought, what are we doing? I've done this. It's in Cosmo magazine. I'm a Libra. I mean, what else do you need to know? Kind of thing. It's like, no. There's actual science behind this. What was interesting was that we went to an offsite, and the entire team came together, and this vendor had put a grid on the ground and basically put us all on there based on our personality profiles, this brain mapping technique. What was interesting here is my young, early 20s self is that I instantly recognized the people that I got along with the best were the people who were standing right around me on the grid. And the people, especially one person in particular that I could not stand, was the exact opposite on this brain map. It was fascinating. It was enlightening. Now, we didn't go into much, there were some insights and takeaways from that and kind of, and like a lot of those kinds of group activities, team activities, the next day, it's like that day never happened. Everybody forgot, but it kind of stuck with me. Now, when I worked for a couple other companies that have done other variations of this, Hewlett-Packard did a version of this. When I was at Microsoft, though, they partnered with a company called Insights that has a version of, again, it's all based on like the Myers-Briggs personality types, which are based on, if you've done any that kind of research, psychology, sociology on the Freudian personality types. And the basic, you don't have to buy into all of that. Look, the reality is whether you agree with the personality types, like the Freudian personality types, they're all very negative. Like no one's going to admit that, oh yeah, no, I'm a highly evolved psychotic personality type, but that's a personality type, and there's the narcissist, there's kind of all those things. So Myers-Briggs is much more business friendly language around that. But the basic idea is that we are a mixture of all of those things, and we lead with one or two, but we have a mixture of all of them. And so Microsoft really prescribed to, and I think they still do this. I don't know if there's any Microsoft people that are there in the audience that can, say if they still do this. But Susan, you have one of these, don't you? The little colored bricks. Did you ever do this?
Nope. No, I did something like it when I was there, but I didn't get the bricks. Okay. John, did you? I mean, there's some other softies. Nope.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, we did it, 2 different teams, 2 different times. My colored bricks came out in the same order. So I looked for them. I couldn't find them since my move ended last summer. But my colors are yellow, red, green, blue. And it was not about you. It was about understanding how you fit within the organization and how your personality style, what you lead with, how that personality style gets along with the other personality styles. And it was, so again, this, to go into a half-day workshop or a full-day workshop, to go through this personality analysis, and then very quickly towards the end, do some teamwork to figure out, how do we as a team of 10 people, get along kind of things. It was very rushed. And to do it justice, I mean, it really does take time. It takes effort to kind of understand yourself and then how your profile works with other profiles. And so here you've probably seen the personality types, the different things that are out there. What's fascinating about how Insights does this and similar programs, again, it's like I'm an what am I I'm trying to remember ENFP, I believe, but which is not on here, but is the so I'm the yellow in Insights is the outgoing. It's the, in fact, the next slide shows you this. It's the sunshine yellow. It's the personally involved, expressive. It's the people that are, a lot of the theater people, the background, the creatives, that side of things. Where red is like, let's go, let's put the project plan together, drivers, salespeople. Blue is analytical, it's the data, it's that side of it. Let's go back and analyze this. Well, the green is do you need a hug? Are you okay? It's support people, that side of things. So I am yellow, red, green, blue, and I'm like 82 on a scale to 100. It's 82 yellow, 78 red, like 45 green, and like 20 blue. And so my approach is like, let's collaborate together. Let's go get it done while we're collaborating. And everybody okay with that? And we'll hire somebody to do the data. That's my personality. And so what's fascinating about this and going through this exercise, and it was really the second time that I went through this exercise and where I had my direct reports, and I'm looking at the time I had, 10 to 12 direct reports and working with my director. And I really started to see that it's not, like understanding my personality style and understanding each of my direct reports and my peers and my manager, their styles. I would then go in and look at the guidance on when you're a personality type A, trying to work with personality type A, these are the things that work the best. When you're trying to work with somebody that's a personality B, here are things that you should change. And I almost felt like I was like hacking the system with a difficult director in our organization. And I found out his personality style and I started using these tactics. I'm like, man, if I'm dead if he actually read any of this material. The beauty of that was his personality type. There's no way, no chance he was ever going to go read that stuff. He would never put any effort into this kind of thinking. And so it was perfect. I was able just to literally textbook use some of the guidance on how to get things done with that difficult personality type. And it worked, and I was blown away. And so I did more. I actually went through a program and did for a year and did training with a group called Pathwise. It's another Microsoft certified company, training company there. So why am I starting on this topic in group dynamics? And if you've not done something like that, look, there's free online tools that are out there. It's difficult to go and do one of those things, as I joked in the beginning, like reading through Cosmo magazine and doing some surveys, because what you'll lack then is the ability to go and have someone who is an expert in this to talk to you about the second part, which is then the relationships with team members and how your style best works with the others. And that's the guidance that, where you're really paying for the services for vendors like that. But why I'm bringing this up is because, again, it's most of the issues that we run into, and we know this inherently. If you don't know this inherently, believe me, this is true, is that most of the problems that we have with deploying technology have nothing to do with the technology. It has everything to do with the people and the culture of the organization. We talk a lot about finding the right cultural fit for technology. Now, you've got to be careful with that phrase, and especially if you're mindful of like diversity and inclusion, cultural fit doesn't have anything to do with the diversity and inclusion side of things. It's not about creating a echo chamber of people. I guess it does have a lot to do with D&I, but it's my point here is that for the technology, it's not about that side of things, but it's about finding, okay, what is the overall style and the culture, the way that work gets done, and finding that fit. But you do need to understand that corporate culture. You do need to understand the personality breakdown as best you can if you're going to be successful in deployment, onboarding of any technology. Because if people are stuck in this rut and they're not willing to change and they have these certain habits, the more you can adapt what you're trying to do around your collaboration to the style, the cultural fit of the organization today, the more lasting that change. And the best way to explain this is that it's like the ripping off the Band-Aid method of changing everything that everybody does. So it's all new, doesn't work. It should be this organic, gradual system. And I'll get into, kind of the how of that. Having change management, and I'll come back to that point again, is essential to that. So success really does hinge on the culture and finding that fit. Now, your collaboration needs are also going to be complex, and it's increasingly complex. And then Microsoft has some great slides out there that I like reusing here about, what does it look like for the customers? Look, they don't have a strategy. They've got a blend of new technology, the good enough or the legacy platforms that are out there, all the back end things. They've got all of these other services. We're all in the same scenario. And I always liken it to that there is not a single company out there these days. And if you believe your company, this is true with your company, I'll just tell you you're wrong, but is that there's no company that adheres to, it only uses one OEM, one company's technology. Like, we're all Microsoft and we only use Microsoft technology. There's no Google or Apple technology. Like, right, then you don't talk to your end users because it's all over the place. It's called shadow IT. It's there. And so it's just something that you need to recognize and react to the right way. I always look at that when you find people using unauthorized, unapproved systems. If you're in IT, it's not about going and reprimanding those individuals so much as it's about understanding why they're not doing that. Is it because they have not been trained properly? Are they not aware of what's out there? Is it that they have needs that your platform is not meeting? They could have valid reasons for going around IT to use these other systems. And part of it could, again, come back to that culture. It's what they are used to. They've worked that way for years. And it's hard just to go and do the Band-Aid rip and then expect it to be successful. And so we've got these multiple products. We have all of these increasing demands. And there's all of these we need to stay on top of the technology and take advantage of the technology. The problem is when you don't have a good change management model, when you don't have that culture of change, then it makes it difficult then as you're identifying new technology, new opportunities, new ways to be more effective and efficient. You're not going to be able to deploy those and get the real value out of it. Now we hear this question a lot. Okay, hey, Microsoft has all of these different things out there, and which tool do we use and when? And there's a lot of content out there around this. I hate that question. It's the wrong question. It's the wrong way to look at it. It's because you're looking at it from the technology standpoint. I'd say, okay, first question, what are your end users trying to do? When you think about this, even any kind of diagram of the stack, the problem with this is Skype for Business is going away, it's gone. Okay, that piece is not there. That's now all inside of Teams. You don't want to recommend that stuff anyway, although they're already there, but groups, we're not really using it in that way. This is an old diagram. There's a lot of new things that are out there. But we have, the problem is too many options actually decrease productivity. I always like to reference, I used to have a picture for a similar slide where I had from Seinfeld, the soup Nazi. You got like 3 flavors of soup. What do you want? You don't make up your mind to spend too long. Like, no soup for you. Out of line, move back. But we need to look at it, approach it from, okay, what are the use cases? What are people actually trying to do? I'd say like in a good, better, best scenario, this is like the better. The good is, hey, we've got all these tools available, and people will kind of find their way. The better is, no, we're going to go through and identify the use cases and have like best practices around these common use cases. You know, the best would be, well, no, we actually go through and provide detailed guidance on more complex scenarios and pilot those things and all. That's kind of where I'm going with this. But there's, again, tons of content that's out there. Microsoft is getting much better about providing these kinds of tools, these kinds of helps, actually providing templates and guidelines for going and piloting the various technologies that they're coming out with. And so that's something that if you go and look for that, you'll find that. Now, you've probably seen a version of this. I've made some modifications to it, of the inner loop, outer loop. Some people are not a fan of that, the language around this. It was introduced a couple of years back. I think it was an excellent description of to help further the conversation of trying to identify what are the right scenarios, the right culture, the right type of collaboration, what we're trying to accomplish. So for those that aren't familiar with this, I'd say show of hands, but I can't see you, so that's all right. But you have then the inner loop. And the idea here, the way that I describe this in Teams, like I launched my company January 2 years ago. From day one, I've been using Teams. I have part-time employees. I partner with grad students for these research projects. And I add everybody into Teams, and we use this to track all the conversations, all of our meetings. Now the videos get captured and the transcriptions that are all there. But the way that I think about this, now I've got a small company. That may not work when you've got 10,000 employees. But where the inner loop works is that, like, it's an event team. Susan and her organizing committee are putting together SharePoint Saturday Virginia Beach. Teams is actually a great place if everybody's on the tenant in that environment to go in and work on that, where it's an end date, this event, that we're working towards, a lot of fast-paced activities. Does everybody in the company need to be part of it, that conversation? No, it's just the team that's putting it together. Or a technical support team where there's an actual ticket where you can pull in and invite anybody into. Maybe you have your a support team, and then you have a channel, could be a single ticket. And you pull in the people, anybody can go in there, and maybe everybody in the company has access to that team for support, but only the people that are in there active on the channel are part of that conversation to solve that issue. And then when you're done, you archive the assets from that, and you can remove that ticket as an active channel. It could be a project manager that's organizing a virtual team to collaborate on an initiative. Again, this is the inner loop. Is we have a specific action. There's an end date. There's a problem to solve. It's a project team. It doesn't mean that it has to end in 3 days. It could go on for 3 years. But again, it's not supposed to be all 10,000 employees. The scope of this is the people that are the key stakeholders and participants on this effort. That's that inner loop, and where Teams fits. On the outer loop, on the other side of that, Yammer is a great fit for that. That's where, like, if you have a formal ideation process where, an executive in the company is saying, hey, we want to create this new, this new thing, whatever it is, we're looking for input from anybody. They don't know where the ideas are going to come from. It could be that they're looking for expertise outside of their working team. There's a lot of different ways that you can use this. Honestly, I use Yammer extensively as a on-the-fly extranet solution, because I can, within 3 minutes, 2 minutes, create a site that I can invite via email 10 people from 10 companies and start collaborating. It's perfect for that kind of scenario. So again, when you've got external people, I'll tell you, I'm not a huge fan of the external user capabilities within Teams. It's very limiting. There's some features in there. There's things that you can do and can't do, which make no sense. But the Yammer in this scenario has been fantastic. But as you're going, and here's a great example, former company, we got acquired, and we're part of this all hands meeting, and sitting in the meeting, it was kind of a half day, like 4 or 5 hour long thing, and people are pushing email around and asking questions, and there's 4 different locations that are on live feed for this thing, and I open up Yammer. I find that nobody from the company has been in Yammer in a year. I go and I create a group for that meeting, and then I push it out to the entire company. Hey, if you've got questions in real time, ask them here. Let's pull it. But we were also creating the knowledge assets, which we could pull up later. Interesting enough, about 8 months later, we bought another company. We went through a similar exercise and had another meeting. And even before I went in, I saw that people had already gone in, found that old discussion, started surfacing threads and answers to questions that the new employees were asking, that the last group asked, and resurfacing those knowledge assets. And so it's really valuable there in that outer loop. And then I use this phrase, the ubiquitous loop. It's the things that are always there. SharePoint, OneDrive, and Outlook. There are scenarios where, the right way to communicate, don't overcomplicate it, send an email. Other times it's, look, I send a link in OneDrive. I'm really trying to not send attachments and instead send a link to the OneDrive now and just get out of breaking that habit. But you have different tools for different scenarios, different needs there, where SharePoint and OneDrive for Business is SharePoint under the covers. Very soon you're seeing all the back end of files for Yammer. It's all SharePoint, so that you can still be compliant, you can still have all your security, all those things in place. And so you have groups that tie together all these different pieces, graph and security across the board with all these things. How does that translate into Microsoft solutions? Look, it's the $5 answer. It depends. There's a lot of pieces out there. We've got the communication sites, of course, hub sites that pull all those things together. You've got Exchange and Outlook, Teams. You've got Yammer. You've got OneDrive. You have all these different options. What's the right one to use? Sometimes the right solution is SharePoint. Sometimes it's SharePoint and Teams. Sometimes it's 2 different SharePoint sites and Teams. Sometimes it's Teams in the front end with SharePoint on the back end, but we're also using Yammer, or maybe OneDrive, or maybe all of those things. Plus, we've stood some things up on Azure because we're going and doing some things on Power BI and whatever that is. The idea here is that it's infinitely complex based on the needs there. And so to focus on the technology makes no sense. Understanding the needs of the business and the culture of the people that are collaborating is where you need to focus your time. So, the secret of change is about adapting that change, getting it to stick, because without it, your effort's going to fail, because people are like water running downhill. They will follow the path of least resistance. And so you have to, and that's why you have to be strategic about how you roll things out, how you onboard people, and how you reach that destination too. If you go in and dictate, you must now use these tools, without providing that path, without providing the guidance, without nurturing people along, they'll rebel from that. It's just, you're guaranteed. And so we focus on processes, but number one, technology, then process, and we often forget people, which are the number one way to be successful with collaboration, is get people on board. Because you could have outmoded ancient technology and have happy, productive people. You can't have the latest technology and unhappy people and be successful. It doesn't happen. Really quick, I know that we're kind of at the time here. I just want to share a quick story here. I'll abbreviate it. I'm talking about lasting change, and here's an example from my life. And so there, I was working at an organization. I won't say who. It was Microsoft. So I was having a difficult time, owned all the SharePoint environments. My team was a shared services team. So I had engineers, analysts, project managers. And so we worked across a number of different organizations, and my people were being pulled in so many different directions, and strong personalities all around the organization. what I did is I went and didn't ask permission, just went and did it. Is I went and purchased a whiteboard, and I stuck it in the hallway right off the elevator where the majority of our 100 people organization kind of walked through. And I had 8-10 people at that time. And I instituted a morning stand-up meeting, 9 a.m., mandatory. Some people were working from home one day a week. They were really upset that I made this mandatory, but we had to have everyone there. And that meeting could be sometimes 5 minutes. The other times it could be 30 minutes. But what was beautiful at that time is that people were still walking in the morning, and we're standing there. They're having to walk through us. That was intentional. We wanted it to be out in the open. But what we did is we did this. It's just an agile Scrum method. Is we said, okay, what are all the projects we have that we've committed to, that have dates on it, that people are working on? Okay, we put them on the board. We put them in order of priority. And at the top were the requests that came directly from our VP. But we had the priorities there. And then we went through and made some decisions about them and said, okay, this is not working. We need to shuffle what people are working on to get these other things done. And then throughout the day, as people came and asked, we had the project, the owner, the ETA on those. As people asked and put in new requests, we wrote them over on the right side, for new requests that came in, which we discussed the next morning. And I made it clear to my people that you're not authorized to accept any new work. You are not authorized to deviate from the plan of record, period. If somebody has a problem with it, if they get angry at you, point them to me. And had some difficult discussions. And this one difficult personality that I mentioned earlier, he was very difficult. It was great, the conversation. I walked over to the board and I said, all right, your project here, number 5. Nobody working on it because I pulled them all off working on the top 4. First project, that's our VP Anna's. Do you think your project is more important than Anna's? Well, no. Second one, also Anna's. Do you think your request is more important than this one? No. All right, the third one. Do you think it's, so he agreed that his was number 5, that we had made the right prioritization. I said, all right, do you have additional funds or people that I can manage on your behalf to get this done now? Well, no. Like, all right, you're next on the list. And he understood, and I went and complained, and I'd come back, here's our methodology, this is what we're doing. What happened was, over the next couple weeks, once my people understood this, they started relaxing. They're like, this is great. I don't feel like I'm being throttled by every direction. We have process. They put trust in the process that we had gone through, evaluated, prioritized, all those things. But what also happened, and it took about a month, but all of the other people managers, all of the other, they all started to trust the process that it worked. Some of them went and said, well, I'm going to go kind of start my own team to go and do this. Like, hey, more power to you. Go hire somebody. You could have just given me those funds and I would have done it, but you went and did it and wanted to do it your way. Great. And they actually, that difficult guy that I mentioned, got beat up about going and hiring an IT person, a consultant, rather than working with my team and just funding my team. But it's one thing when I say it, it's another thing when the VP criticizes him for doing it. So I was okay with that result. But why that scenario worked, and the funny thing about it, I should just back up really quick, is that we had everything. We were doing this. We had all of our reports in SharePoint. We pushed out the link to SharePoint. People were not going and accessing the reports, and people would say, I need an update. It's like, it's in the SharePoint report. Well, I don't know where that is. It's linked off the intranet page. It's in the emails that we send out. So then we started crafting emails to difficult managers on a weekly basis or more often. And that's part of the frustration of my team, is that a lot of project managers will understand this, constantly pushing out updates when all people needed to do was log in and look at the dashboard. So at the end of this process, my director said to me, I think this is all fantastic. Kudos to you and your team for doing this. The only thing I would change is I would move all of this into SharePoint so that it was all visible. And I just kind of smiled and said, that's a great idea. And later that day, I'm like, here's the link. We've done it. And it was just a link to what was already there. We did nothing new. But it worked because we made the process. We made all of our activities transparent. We kept going. We persisted through the stormy times at the beginning. Everyone had a voice. A lot of people complained. My people, our internal customers, but we then, was people understood the process and that they could come and add to the board. That people were comfortable. They understood. They conformed to that, and we constantly revised the priorities based on what's happening, and then communicated out the changes. And it goes back to that culture. I understood the culture of the organization. I understood that what this organization required was strongman tactics. It wouldn't work everywhere. I tried it later. It didn't work the other time, but it worked in this scenario. I knew why it didn't work the next time. And so you really need to create a culture with change, prepare people for that change. And the key, of course, is to experiment. And this is my last slide here. How do you experiment? This is where it's really about going through. And now if you can take step A before this and if you're able to go through and do like the personality profiles, that side of it, have that additional information to inform you on how to approach this number one of identifying and the styles around that. It is so beneficial if you can do that. But, typically it's the standard answer, who are the stakeholders? Who are the champions? Who are the users out there? What are they doing? Then identify those business scenarios and real projects. Don't go pilot on throwaway non-problems. You'll never find success and have a successful pilot and get people to buy in if you're not solving actual problems in your organization. So take real projects and pilot those. And then run those pilots. It should have an end date. Refine that. We don't do enough of these end of project reviews, the mortems. So that's something that you go in there and do. Don't do a pilot once. Multiple, learn from it. Fold the learnings back in. And then from that, once you're ready to launch that, then design and be thoughtful about an actual campaign for people to adopt and to become engaged and to stay engaged, and monitor and manage that and adjust as you see people reacting to that. Some other guidance here: internal awareness campaigns, self-help, training information, define feedback mechanism and make sure that is transparent. Make sure people see that it changes. They can't, it's the old idea of I put a suggestion in the suggestion box and never heard anything ever again. That cannot happen. And then have those success measures based on what you learn from the pilots on what's our adoption rate? What does this actually look like? What are the key materials? What needs to happen 30 days in? What additional training needs to happen ongoing? All those things should be thought out as part of that onboarding process. I'm also a huge advocate for identifying those champions. It doesn't mean that it's in their title. Find the people that get it, that grab hold of it early on and become passionate about them, because they become your best advocates, and they can actually help the rest of your end users get through possibly difficult decisions, or as the platform rolls out, as the technology is deployed. Have that feedback method, of course. Always measure and share your successes, and then adjust as needed, and realize that change is not, okay, we've done this and we've now changed. We're a changed organization. No, it's like Deming says, it's optimize the system. It's an operational activity. It's ongoing. It's forever, people. It's forever, because it's always changing. I know it's a lot to jam pack into now, 38 minutes. So apologies for going over, Susan, but thanks a lot. And of course,
Johnny a beer. He's waiting to hook up here.
Yeah, no worries. So hand up there. I don't know if there's any questions, anything else that you'd like, but
Can you hear me, Christian?
I can hear you barely.
Everybody yell and say thank you to Christian. We lost most people because they had to go to their next session. But thank you, Christian.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was great to participate virtually, at least. Not like last year when I tried to make it there physically and almost got trapped in Atlanta in snow. So
Yeah, for the
thankfully,
blizzard. All right. Well, thank you, and hope
thanks a
to
lot.
see you sometime soon.
We'll talk to you soon.